I'm going to call to order the Special Committee of the Whole for Monday, December 12th, 2016. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Present are Mayor Marion Galbraith, Deputy Mayor Pete Hedrick, Councilors Andrew Ovento, Jill Rusk, Stephen Sheffield, Conrad Heath, Lawrence Garish, Finance Director Ron Lewis, Clerk Deborah Patrick.
Thank you very much. So we have been approached by 3 legislators, Senator-elect Summers and Representatives-elect Conley and Dela Cruz, to talk to us about what we would like them to work on legislatively for us. So I pulled together a couple of documents, not to suggest that they should be your priorities, but just to show you what other organizations are looking at. So we have what the Council of Governments put together, and they try to focus, they try to really narrow theirs down to the things that are really important. And then also the CCM, which is made up of the Legislative Committee of the CCM, and those are not finalized. Some of them have been voted on, some of them have not. But I sent them to you for ideas. Again, you don't have to use them. So the purpose of this meeting is to see what your legislative priorities are, what it is that for the city of Groton you would like our legislators to focus on, and then to talk about how you would like to proceed. We can all meet with the legislators, or we can have a subcommittee meet with the legislators, or however you want to do that. But their bills need to be in by January 13th. So they're interested in knowing sooner rather than later what's important to you. So I throw it open to you, and I think that first what we might want to do is just get some ideas on the table and then see where we can build consensus around those ideas. So if you have ideas, I'll just start to jot them down. Yes, Deputy Mayor Hedrick.
Thank you. I was thinking in general about economic development on Thames Street.
Okay.
Just as a large umbrella, and I noticed that the Council of Governments had one of theirs, under two other items, the continuation of funding for the Thames River Heritage Park Initiative, including potential funding for the water taxi and the construction of a dock at the Nautilus and Submarine Museum. And that would help tie things together, but if we can get additional funds for the water taxi and for economic development, you know, as a large umbrella, I haven't thought about specifics on that yet, but I was hoping that we could brainstorm and maybe something would come up here.
How's the Mother Bailey House potential funding? Any additional?
To be very honest with you, I don't know how successful funding is going to be this year. We can certainly advocate for any funding, but what I hear is that it's going to be pretty tight up in Hartford. But I certainly wouldn't hesitate to put it down. In fact, I didn't hesitate to put it down. It's down there. But we can, and then, so right now I'm just writing down your ideas, and then we'll see what we think are the most important things for us to pursue.
I would say continued efforts against working to find some solutions on the drug problem in southeastern Connecticut.
Yep.
I was going to say what Councilor Russ said, but also there's affordable housing in here too, and I think as a community with a lot of housing projects and lower income people, it's good if we could kind of see that go forward and know that that's something that's a priority too.
See what go forward.
The affordable housing, making sure that that is something that stays in there, because that's on the list here too.
For them to fund affordable housing,
just seeing
because
that
what they have in here is a little bit different than, it's not about funding for affordable housing. It's what CCM has in here. It's about incorporating smart growth principles and environmental impacts when considering the creation and or appeals of affordable housing. Is that what you were looking at?
No, I was looking at under,
Okay.
hold on, let me see. Just saw it. I just saw one that was. Sorry, guys. Yes, so where it says land use, housing, community development, allow the density of proposed development consideration during appeal process, expand definition of what qualifies as affordable housing. Based on local or regional median income, existing redistricted housing, senior workforce, etc. That's what I was talking about.
Okay.
So just keep those programs in mind, and I think it's something that's important to the city because we have several low-income housing, and also we have several senior housing places here. So it's just something that I think would be important to our residents.
Maintain infrastructure, for sure. Maintain our roads, just in case with funding between us and the town, making sure we have sufficient.
Okay, so what do you want our state legislators to do? Maintain funding for, now they would do state roads and they would do, and they do some lot SIP programs, local transportation programs, things like that.
Okay, so lots.
Okay.
Yep.
So one of the things they had under lot SIP was to expand the definition of what the lot SIP money can be used for.
Right.
And so I think that would be something that would be of particular interest to the city, because right now it has to be just streets that are in the federal highway program. But that's pretty limiting. So if you could really use lot SIP to be for local transportation programs, you might be able to do something like a Shore Avenue, retaining wall or something like that.
Well, that's what I have highlighted here, is in order to expand eligibility for additional projects to qualify for lot SIP funding. So expand the eligibility.
I would also like to suggest under the infrastructure that they support the lockbox concept for transportation and
Yes.
do something with 95. I mean,
Yes.
Yep.
but not just 95. I mean, they need to do something with 95. They need to really work on transportation issues. We should have a much better regional bus program, and the state ought to be doing some money to fund it. I mean, putting some money into fund it, because right now, and again, I don't know where we're going to go with money, but it's, the seat bus program doesn't get to run with the frequency it would like, and mostly it's paid for by the municipalities.
Right.
So 95, I mean, that would be important to me.
Yep, I agree.
There's got to be some regional transportation programs.
I was thinking of two sort of broad ideas in particular. One is expenses. We have about 2 million people who live in the state of Connecticut. It seems to me that, and I could be ignorant on how we go about buying things like salt, for example, for the roads, but the state should be able to, or could consider, setting up a program where towns can band together to purchase soda or salt or road
We can do
material
that
or
already,
something. You
yeah,
can? Okay.
yeah. So we can not only do that through CREC, we can do that through COG.
Mhm.
So CREC is the capital region, it's CREC. And what they have put together, almost like a state bid list. They have worked with lots of different contractors to put together those best bids. It's kind of like that state bid list where we buy things. And is it a charge of $50? Any municipality in Connecticut can be part of their program. And so the salt, which is actually purchased over here in New London, is on their bid list, and they also offered that price to COG. Mm-hmm. So we already have that capability. In fact, an awful lot of things. You've heard us talk about things being on the state bid list or on the CREC list.
Yeah, we use a state bid list for quite a few things.
Right. Yeah, I've heard it with police cars, I think, and then we just personalize it for,
Yep.
the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of our vehicles come off of the state bid list, and what the state does, they just they do a bid, and then we can piggyback off.
So like I said, there's the state bid list, and that's a bid list that the state puts together for its things, and we can piggyback off it. But CREC also has one for municipalities, and I believe that we paid our due, that we're a member of that.
Yeah, I have to check on that one.
I think we are, yeah.
All right. Well, then, along the same lines, in terms of expenses, I think they should look at some of the regulations that cost us a lot of money, like FOI, for example, and maybe help us to get the information out there so that we don't have as many FOI complaints or requests, because I know it costs a lot of money to carry out that, to basically do it.
So one of the things that we talked about at both COG, and I saw it in the CCM, is the unfunded mandates that we have. There are so many things that we're required to do that cost us a lot, and the fees are either very little. So for FOI, you get to charge 50 cents a page. That's only if they want a hard copy. That it's very. But if they don't want a hard copy, you've spent all that time and work, and they can, virtually just come in and look at it. So that there ought to be some kind of, we spend a lot of time and money on FOI, and some of them are FOI issues that are things like, I want to see every document associated with TVC. Well, really? Really? To get every document associated with TVC would be every bill that they ever sent out, everything, so some of them are really not well thought out. But I have down that regulations that cost us a lot of time and money, you want them to help educate people about, what was it that you exactly wanted the legislators to do?
Well, I guess clarify the regulation so that it's more tight, because as it is right now, they should analyze the impact on communities. At a certain point, it can become so expensive or time consuming that it results in other things being dropped.
So what if we considered that an example of them supporting legislation that would really, in any case, when they're asking a town to take on a function, that would really make them look at how this is going to be funded, what the actual impact on a town is going to be, what its real potential impacts are, and then use that as an example. Would that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
I just have a question. So with something like the FOI, it's 50 cents a page. Does the state set that as the
Yes.
fee, or is that a city
No,
thing?
state sets
So
that.
maybe something to consider, since we are more electronic and it makes more sense to not have to run everything off, the fee could be for the work that's put into it. How much does it cost a person to do that work? If it's Heidi doing the work, if it's someone in utilities, whatever, whoever that person is that's doing that work, how much does it cost of their time to do that work? And that's a reasonable fee. Because the 50 cents is great if you're actually printing stuff out, but and even then it amounts to nothing, usually. But if someone's taking the time to do that work, it should be accountable.
So again, that would be, I'm assuming that you're
Yeah.
speaking to even more input on how a bill can actually have an effect and the
Right.
loss of productivity or time or funds and what it takes to actually
It's-
carry that
and
out.
It's not to be against an FOI. I'm completely for that, but it's the whole process. What does it cost? Maybe back in the day, it used to cost 50 cents a page made sense because someone could go in and open a book and take things out, but it's very different now with technology and how much stuff is created and spent,
What is the cost if it's put on a CD or something? $20. So you could have thousands and thousands of documents that you have to have, and you put them on a CD, and all you get is $20.
Right, but but the thing is, it's the amount of time that someone has
Right.
to spend to do that, which is taking them away from their actual job. And like I said, back in the day, a clerk could go in, open up, everything was kept that way. You open the book, you pull the thing out, you make the copy. Now it's just not like that anymore. There's thousands of things stored everywhere because it's just the nature of how things are set up.
Along that same line of the unfunded mandates and looking at things, we have for several years, and you'll see it again on the COG, put in that there ought to be an application fee for historic district work.
Yes.
Because that has the same requirement, it has the same requirements for us in terms of costs, in terms of noticing a meeting, which you know what newspaper costs are, all those same costs, but we can't charge anything for that fee the way that we can for conservation and wetlands, or we can for a building permit or anything else. We can't charge any fees for that. And it would be a really simple fix to just let us assign a fee that would be similar to conservation and wetlands.
I know that went through, or they were attempting to do that during the last session. But I don't know if it ever made it out of committee.
I believe it made it out of committee, but not out into, but it didn't make it through the vote. Because it's only going to be important to towns that have historic districts.
Right.
Yes.
So I know this doesn't, well, it does affect us, but we wouldn't vote on something like this. But when, in here, it has the things about the school construction grant process being more transparent. And I can say, just from reading the paper, even aside from being a teacher and hearing about this a lot, it seemed like every time, and I don't know whose fault this is along the way, so I don't know. It's just from how things appear. It appears that one day with the grant, like everything is clear cut, and then the next day they find some other reason why you can't have it. Or whatever, your application process wasn't turned in on time, and then nothing seems very clear. That you can't go on a website and say, here's the information you need to apply for a school construction grant process. I don't think a regular person would be able to understand that very well. As a town that's going to be going through this soon, I think it's important that stuff is very clear so anyone can understand it. Because it's been a back and forth definitely on this project that was just approved.
Got it. I put CCM 1.
Yes.
Now, do we qualify for this steep on the transportation, bringing that up, small town economic assistance program, page 2 of the
Yes, the last page of the CCM.
last page, yeah. Committee recommended state legislative funding.
I think that those are all, the steep, the stip, the tip, are all managed through COG. So most transportation money, other than the town aid road, go through the COG. The local capital improvement program is not a road issue. That's where we just used some of that money for the Mother Bailey, or said we would use some of that for the Mother Bailey. Each town gets a certain amount of it. But certainly the idea of maintaining, and frankly, I think they should fully fund pilot, but anyway, maintaining the money that comes back to the municipalities, either through COG or not, is important.
Okay.
Yep,
I was just
and
gonna
municipal grants and aid we want to keep too.
Yes. So
I was just going to say, going off that, I feel like in the past couple budgets, it seems like when we make the budget, we anticipate that money, but we don't find out what the actual number is, and tell me if I'm wrong. We've had some issue with planning on having it, but then we don't find out till after the fact. So maybe a little more clarity on whether or not it's appropriate to include, any town or city, include that in their budget, because if you're anticipating something and they're saying yes now, but after they've approved their budget, and they say no, that's a big thing to have to go out and find money.
And part of that is a funding issue. Part of that is a calendar issue. Municipalities have to have their budgets done by June, and the state doesn't have to, which means you have to prepare them starting much earlier on.
Right.
And the state doesn't have that time frame. There has been some discussion, I don't know how far it's gone, about changing the calendars so that they can be more in line, so that a municipality could know when it would. I don't know exactly how you do that. I mean, if you change to an October to October fiscal year for a municipality, I don't know how you implement that the first time. What do you do from July to October? But there has been, I've been in meetings where that has been discussed, the idea of changing the calendar so that a town can know.
It would seem like it would make sense that to have the state approved budget done, and then the towns and cities can prepare knowing exactly what those numbers are, because it's kind of like we always use the example of preparing your own house budget. If you're like anticipating something and then suddenly it's not there, it really throws you off. So just something to consider.
I would definitely like to second what Deputy Mayor Hedrick said about the money for the water taxi. That's really important to us. Economic development resources, making those available. One of the things that's also been talked about this year is that the low-hanging fruit this year will be, because they are going to have so much trouble in giving out money, the low-hanging fruit might be doing what we were talking about and allowing towns to charge for services that they have to have, rather than, to relieve some of the pressure off the municipalities in terms of their expenses.
Right.
Because they can't give us more money.
Right.
That might be the low-hanging fruit, which is behind a couple of the suggestions that came from COG, which I'm writing on here.
Well, because it just makes sense. If you're going to require something but can't fund it, it doesn't seem fair to leave that on the taxpayers of a town, especially if it's something for everybody. One town, it may be easy to pay that, in another town, it may not. So it doesn't,
So the print ads was part of that. That's something that municipalities have argued against for a really long time. And so COG is, number 2 there is one of those things where that's a huge cost to the municipality, is to have to print things. And so to kind of do to mollify, because the newspaper lobby has been very strongly against changing that. But to do something wherein you could just put in the paper a little thing that says, for instance, the city of Groton is considering changing its ordinance on parking. Click here for more information, or go to our website for more information. Because that's also a benefit to the newspaper. They need those clicks.
Yep.
So somebody could go and look at it, but we don't have to pay as much for the print ad.
Right.
So that's what's behind number 2 there.
Well,
and that goes to what you,
Right, and as simple as that, if that doesn't work, the state could have a website where you post this stuff, and it's, if it's going to be an issue of the newspaper wants to win, it's 2016, you got to be a little more with it. There could be a website that becomes law, that's where the stuff goes, it's printed, people can see it, and you notice it, and you go to the city website or whatever it is, and you find out the information. It seems very old hat, so to speak, to consistently do that. How many people go get the regular paper and look in there for that posting for a city or a town? I would think they would go to the website more regularly to find that anyway.
yes.
I think that fewer state mandates for municipalities.
Yep.
And one of them being listed here is to prevent the Connecticut Commissioner of Public Health to force consolidation of health districts.
Yes.
Because I believe that would end up costing
A
us
bundle,
more money.
a lot
It'd be
more
very
money.
expensive for us, yes.
Call there.
But fewer mandates, because every time you have a mandate, there's a dollar sign on the side of it. And that, that would apply to just about anything. I know some have to be mandated, but the fewer the better.
Do you want me to read back to you what we have, and then we'll kind of maybe make a priority list, which ones you want to have at top? So I have economic development, which contained the funding for the water taxi, the funding for the dock, funding in general for economic development, and the Mother Bailey House. I have finding solutions to the drug problem, keeping affordable housing in mind and supporting programs for affordable housing, maintaining infrastructure, and under that I have money for 95, expanding the lot SIP definition, and regional transportation programs. Then under the general heading of fewer state mandates or releasing the burden of funding,
Unfunded. Fewer
unfunded state mandates. I have the preventing the consolidation of the public health districts, clarify regulations so that they're tighter and clearer for people to understand. In terms of the FOI, using FOI as an example of, and perhaps allowing people to charge a fee for the work that's included in it, not just the paper. I have the historic district.
That was the application
Yep.
fees.
I think I have that. Then I have the transparency on the school building program, maintaining the funding for local programs such as pilot, the list that's in the CCM, and the municipal grants and aid. and then reviewing the timeline for budget approval so that towns have a clearer understanding of what funding they can expect from the state when they do their budget. So what would, of this list that we have put together, what would be your first priorities?
Economic development.
I agree.
Okay,
Which one?
economic
Economic
development.
For second, I would suggest the unfunded mandates.
With the examples. And I'll specify that those are examples and not a limiting list. But, oh, well, we had the historic district in that one too. Did I say that?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Maybe if possible, just to solidify that point, if we have time, we can look up the current unfunded mandates that are placed on the city and show a list. Sometimes that list of how many is impactful. I don't know if we can do that easily, but if we could, that might be
I
something.
don't know how easily we could do that. And I think that it would almost be duplicating some efforts. Let me
Okay.
see if CCM would have something like that, because I think that they've put together things like that in the past. I think it would be so extensive, I'm not sure.
Well, I would assume
The
that they.
extent to
I would
which
assume that they also
you
have
could
it,
do
but
that.
I'm just thinking since everybody going into office is new in these positions, something like that.
We'll see what CCM might be able to
Okay,
get us.
thank you.
So I have a 1 and a 2.
I have another thought, which, you know, it may go nowhere, just I want to bring it up. It's sort of the elephant that's in the room always between the town and city. Is there anything that we can suggest that they work on that would limit the amount of friction that there are between municipalities like ours, where we have debates every year over police funding or highway funding or something like that? I wouldn't even know how to word that, but it seems to be a big cause of
I don't know that there is another town that has that level of friction. I know that there are other towns that have the same situation, but I'm not sure what extent there is that level of friction.
I agree, it's a good point, but I also feel that there's probably already, the only legislation we'll ever have that we already have to protect us in certain areas like the highway, arbitration and stuff, but it would be nice if we could have a state law that says the town's gonna give us whatever we ask for, but that's not gonna happen.
I would say infrastructure is fairly high on the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll put them all on the list unless there's an objection to one, but I'll put those first, I'll put those 3 first on the list. And what we've covered covers almost everything. I mean, underneath those, we have a lot of things in there, so I'll put those down. Now, my next question is, do you want me to invite them to come to a meeting that we have, or do you want me to try to set up another meeting, like to come to one of our council meetings? Or do you want me to set up another meeting and send out an invitation to you to come if you can? Which would you prefer? Yeah, we could try to put this on the agenda for the December 19th. That might be really tough to get them that fast. Or the January 3rd meeting.
But didn't you say there was a,
January 13th, they have to have their legislation, and so unless we're having them, the 3rd might be pretty tight for them. December 19 might be pretty tight in terms of a meeting, so it might be better just to set up a meeting and see who can come. Since it is all of you who have given it input, but
well, I'm okay with you representing us, but I don't know how the other counselors feel about that.
I feel the same as Keith. The only thing I would, and I don't know if it would be feasible or workable or appropriate even, but if we could get a feeling from those people,
Sure.
how they feel about us, are
Right.
they pro consolidation, or are they going to be supportive of us and our trying to keep our independence, that kind of thing. And I don't know if they would even commit to their feelings on it, you know.
I don't know.
I know that they're aware of the situation.
Oh, absolutely. I think that might be a conversation separate and apart from this, since there isn't gonna, as far as I know, there's not gonna be legislation on that.
Yeah.
But it might be nice to be, for you to be able to hear from them about what they think might happen in Hartford this year. So maybe if it's okay, I'll put this together and get it to them so that they can start to work on it. And maybe January 3rd, we'd have them just to have a conversation with what they think. By that time, they may have a clearer idea of what the legislative session might be like, and what might be out there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm in favor of that list being our feelings. But when John Scott and Andre Baumgartner got elected, they did come and sit with us, and I think that's important too.
Yes.
And it was at a regular meeting, I believe, if
Okay.
I remember correctly.
So-
I just think it's a nice way to kind of sit as a smaller group versus a big, larger meeting, which is how those things usually go. So
So let's see if we can reach out and invite people for the 3rd to come.
And we should be nice to them and have coffee and cake and cookies and.
Sure.
Let Councilor Garris be in charge
Yeah,
of
Larry-
that.
Yeah, I should charge you refreshments.
you can take.
So that's Tuesday, right? Tuesday.
That is a Tuesday, because Monday is the day that they observe New Year's.
Okay.
What are the days again?
It'll be Tuesday.
January 3rd, Tuesday, January 3rd.
I have another issue. This may not be city council. You don't have to support it. It's a personal issue. I would like to see them work on some of the pollution that happens. Like every time I walk through the city, I pick up styrofoam cups and plastic cups and straws all over the place. It would be nice to see some effort to encourage, the Dunkin' Donuts and other facilities to use paper. Just seems like there's a lot of plastic blowing all over my neighborhood.
Something I feel, 5 Corners, potential economic development in that area, I think.
So I doubt they're going to be able to do legislation that supports a particular neighborhood. What we could ask them to do is to support legislation or programs that would provide funding for, the way they do a lot SIP or a low SIP, that would allow, or maybe it's just freeing up the rules that we have around even LoSiP. You know,
Right.
LoSiP has to be a capital improvement program,
Right.
so that it could, so that the dollars that are available can be used. They're not gonna get the Connecticut legislature to say, we're gonna put X number of dollars into 5 Corners, but if we talk to them about, freeing up dollars, or even freeing up what money can be used on. Even if local town aid road money could be used on streetscape improvements as opposed to just streets, if you see what I mean, if there was some way that they could
Yeah,
loosen up.
and don't you think that a lot of that is our local efforts? Speaking of the 5 Corners, for example, I mean, there's already, this year, I think there's already been a lot of good improvement up there with
Yeah.
the repaving of the road, even that Crunch and Munch, somebody, I think it was the city, when they did the sidewalk, they cleaned up that grassy or garden area.
In the edge area.
Which was a mess. That was good. Our blight officer, there's a
doing a
couple of
great job.
houses behind Subway that were continuously a mess.
Mm-hmm.
I personally made a complaint one day about it. I see a big improvement there, so maybe if the city made an effort to even communicate to some of the people up there, like the Rich's garage. We know it's a garage and everything, but if he was made aware by a representative here in the city that we're trying to make this area look nice, anything you can do toward that end would be appreciated. Just make them aware
It's
that.
interesting you should ask that, because we had a scout who was interested in doing a project, and we talked to him about doing a project where he would take a piece of, like, one of those little strips either, in front of any one of those businesses and beautify it, you know?
Right.
Come up with a little plan, and whether it was a planter, whether it was something. We wrote a letter to every single business and said he'll be coming.
Yeah.
We'd like you to meet with him, you know, not one response.
Is that right?
Not one. Not one person, person responded to us, and no one responded to him, of anybody up there. So that doesn't mean we're giving up, but it just means that, we'll just have to keep working harder on it.
Yeah.
But you're right about Five Corners, so I'm sure you've all seen that the building has come down next to Cumberland Farms, and I think that's gonna be a huge improvement for
Yep.
that area.
Yes.
There's been some houses sold across from Buford's, that are being fixed up. Some people are investing there. There'll still be, you know, rental properties,
Yeah.
but somebody has invested in making them much nicer. So
Right.
we're seeing, and some cleaning up efforts. So we're seeing some things happen, which
Yeah,
is nice.
It looks better already, I think. It may be on the same line, Andy was talking about low-income housing, and I know there's a issue coming up about Groton Heights School,
Mm-hmm.
and the possibility of affordable housing up there, but
I don't think that's what they're looking at
I
there.
hope not.
I think what they're looking, my understanding is that the developer who has shown an interest in that has shown an interest in condos, I think.
In the existing building?
Yes. I don't know if it's any bigger than that. I don't know, so I shouldn't say yes. I know that that's part of it, but I don't know that they aren't also looking at more. I don't know that answer. I really don't know the plan, what's being talked about for up there.
It just seems that we're so cluttered with condos and low-income housing in the city.
Well, there's a difference between low-income housing, affordable housing, and then condos. I mean, they're very different levels. So affordable housing is different than low-income housing, or subsidized housing. So affordable housing is based on a certain percentage of the average income, and it's a multiplier. So like 1.5 or 2 times the average income, which is different than subsidized housing.
I just wouldn't want to see that area turn into a...
Well, I don't want to get too far afield from our legislation, because
Right.
it's not on our agenda, so, let me bring it back to that economic development part, and saying that we're probably not going to get a particular project, although we could talk about what our interest is in having economic development dollars freed up.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right,
Okay.
but like you said, if they can either expand the definition or expand the purpose for which existing programs can be used, then the dollars could stay the same, and it gives us more autonomy on where to spend the money.
Yep.
And-
Okay.
And that would not be an increase in spending, but it would give us an opportunity to spend the money, because there's projects currently that where it does not apply because of the restrictions of the specific program.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, Andy.
And I would just say,
Councilor Vento.
I would just say, going off the economic development, I mean, the one thing I think about Five Corners, you know, there's maybe improvements that can be made in beautification, but I think off the top of my head, every business is full up there, which is a positive thing. So I think when we're talking about the Heritage Park and the water taxi, that's something we want to keep through the state and help that be funded. So our focus should be down there and making that a reason to keep it, because if they're going to ask us, why should we have the water taxi? I can't give them an answer right now. I know why we should have it and what it could be, but our focus should be down there, because, like I said, off the top of my head, every building is just about, with the exception of maybe one I can think of, is full up on Five Corners. That should be our focus, at least until we make some serious
And a
progress.
lot of that is because of EB.
Yep.
That there are people there who those people who can go out for lunch can walk up to a Buford's or a Pizza Today or a Friendly Thai or a Subway or a Dunkin' Donuts, and who do, as they walk from a parking lot, stop and use those. And so the part about the water taxi as an economic driver is that it brings, and we've started talking about this in our Economic Development Commission, we're bringing in so many people to Groton, and they're either maybe walking around for a few minutes up to Fort Griswold, or they're, staying on the boat, and what we want to do is we want to give them ways to,
Come and
and we want to
Enjoy
give
the
them
city.
businesses in which they can spend their money and their time. So, so that's,
people like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole
Absolutely.
premise behind it. People enjoy that as much as you don't want to say spend their money. People usually take those things so they can go out and do something that's a little
Yes.
more fun
Yep.
or whatever.
yep. Okay, so I will get this written up. We'll have plenty of time to get it to you before January 3rd. That's not a problem. The other thing we have on our agenda is very, very short. You have a letter that was originally sent to Mark Offinger by mistake. It was really meant for us, and we have since met with the proper people. So this is from Ray Boucher of the Department of Transportation. They are looking to purchase from us easements on property at the water operations plant, and what they are, I did not make this map because it would have been really tough to make something this big to give to everybody, but it's really just this to be able to put guy wires for poles. So in order to have, so here's our water operation, here's Pequannock Road, and here's our driveway, and here's where the 50 and 5 generators are. And they want these two teeny tiny little places to be able to put guy wires. And they need to have an easement in order to do it. So they're about $500. That's what the cost of it is. But you're going to be getting, and they're not taking away the property, doesn't limit our ability to use the property. It just also allows them to use it to maintain the guy wires for the poles. So this will be coming to you on December 19th for a vote. It had to go to P&Z first for an 824. It's a minimal project, but it does have to be okayed by you. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on it before you get the resolution next Monday.
Do you need a motion to put this on the agenda for the 21st?
Yes, probably that's a good idea.
I make a motion to place this on the mayor and council meeting of the
19th.
19th.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, thank you. Does it cost us anything basically to do this? Is it just we get $500 and it doesn't cost anything
Doesn't cost
additional?
us a thing.
Okay.
Not a thing. So it's just a matter of sending it to P&Z because it's our property and they have to okay a use. Barbara doesn't foresee any difficulty with that at all. Like I said, we're not actually giving anything away. It just means they can walk on and put a guy wire on the property, and it's not a piece of property we're using, yes.
And we actually have a lot of these with the electrical, like where the wires go over properties, we have a lot of these easements as well. Just, so it kind of works both ways.
So do we have to respond after to
So
this letter?
what he needs is, once it's gone through P&Z, it has to be voted on by us, and then we will get back to him, and then he will go on with the program.
Back to this guy.
Yes.
And we ought to tell him at that time that it's not the town of Groton.
He knows that already. He already came down and met with us. We told him who owned the property, and he already knows that. This is just the letter that stands. In fact, we will have to, after you vote on it, sign a piece of paper and let him know, and that's already been properly corrected to reflect that it's our property. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? That concludes our business in the special meeting.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out today so that we could get this done.